Hi, everyone. My name is Spencer Pauly. I'm here with Carlene Johnson from the Center Square. And we're here to talk about a pretty interesting couple of days, I suppose, to put it lightly. Right, Carlene?
Yeah, absolutely. You initially covered the first rally and counter protest at Cal Anderson Park last weekend. So that was an adventure. And then I got to spend Tuesday afternoon and evening in Seattle covering the follow up to that.
And I appreciate you doing so. But I think just to get started, I'll kind of give some background here. What happened over the weekend here, Carlene, and, help me fill the gaps if you can. But on Saturday, a rally was held at Cal Anderson Park. Now, this rally was held focused on the hashtag Don't Mess With Our Kids movement, which I would say focuses on protecting children from transgender ideologies. Now, I think, Carlene, the issue here, and first off, there's 23 arrests at this Saturday protest because there was a counter protest that came in, interrupted the rally, I suppose we should say. And this is because Cal Anderson Park is within the Capitol Hill neighborhood. Now, this is a prominent LGBTQ area. And as many people may know, this is where the Capitol Hill Occupied protest was held, later known as CHAZ in 2020 as part of the George Floyd protest.
All of the above.
CHOP, all of those little acronyms we got for it. Yep. So a little PTSD, I suppose, for the city, if I may. But what happened was 23 arrests here. And what people are asking is, why the heck was this held in Cal Anderson Park, knowing that their message will conflict with the neighborhood? And this is what was said by Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell. And we'll go in depth here about his statements, but he called the rally far right and said that it was held in Cap Hill to provoke this reaction and cause a greater media attention.
Right.
And I know that this was the same sentiment shared by Seattle Police Officer Guild, who questioned why it was held there. And I know that Seattle Public Safety Committee Chair Bob Kettle questioned the same thing. Now, Carlene, this led to a rally on Tuesday outside City Hall, and this was started by Pursuit Northwest. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a group, church leader, a pastor by the name of Russell Johnson, who kind of leads this Pursuit Church. They've got a few campuses and then a big online presence. The only church group at the rally on Tuesday. There were several other faith groups there, and then just other, Christians who wanted to be there and show their support. But as you mentioned, that controversy with, the location of the Saturday event, became a real flashpoint because, the mayor puts out this big statement after what happened on Saturday, saying these crazy right-wing radical Christians went to Cal Anderson Park and they knew that would cause problems. Well, as it turns out, the mayor's office is the one who encouraged them to hold it at that location rather than originally they wanted Victor Steinbrook Park. I think there was one other one and they were told that wasn't going to be the best location.
Now, Victor Steinbrook Park, that's located in Pike Place. It's a kind of a small park for, I suppose, the rally size. So it makes sense why they say that's probably not the best bet. We have to close off streets. It's not easy. But you're talking about the screenshots shared by Mr. Johnson.
Right.
And these were statements from the mayor's office saying that we suggest Cal Anderson Park. Now, I mean, this leads to so many questions, and that seems like a, big smoking gun, I think is the way he rephrased it. And a
setup, right? It did for the faith-based group that was holding it. Their contention was, okay, wait a minute. You told us go to Cal Anderson.
Yeah.
And then you said, why'd you go to Cal Anderson? And the trans rights activists who were there that, ended up many of them getting arrested when they were confrontational and in some cases violent, causing injuries to police. The question was, okay, then did the mayor's office or anybody inside the mayor's office, notify anybody of this trans rights movement to say, hey, by the way, these guys are going to be there Saturday. You might want to be there to show your objection to it. So we don't have all the backstory on that, but you're right. That sets the stage for what happened Tuesday.
And that's information I've at least submitted to FOIA here to find out, like the emails, who made these decisions. We got to find out because this is urgent, right? We need to know how the heck this happened. And I think it's important for people to know is the Seattle Parks and Recreation Department that makes these permitting decisions. So we need to look there to see where this decision was made, who did it and whatnot. But of course, that's to be determined in the future, hopefully sooner rather than later. But Carlene, I was out of town, unfortunately, as during this span. So you were able to cover Tuesday's rally. What did you see at scene there outside City Hall?
Well, it was, I got there about an hour before the rally was set to start, parked a couple of blocks away with my, fiance who was there. He didn't want me to go alone. He was concerned because he knew there was going to be some potential volatility, and there was. So walked up, had a difficult time initially, even just getting into where the rally goers were trying to enter. They had their own security there. Plus police were there, and they were trying to ensure that nobody was going to be allowed in if you were going to be one of these disruptors. Right. Mm-hmm. So they had, making sure you were who you say you were. And then there's another area that was just above, and Seattle City Hall. Well, they've got that sort of mezzanine area, on the 4th Avenue side, just off Cherry Street. And so that's where they staged all the police, and the reporters were in that area. So I felt safe in that area, but I did venture out, obviously, into the street where some of the trans rights folks were. And I had to tell you, I can't repeat any of the language, things I was called myself. They didn't know who I was from Adam, but I must have looked like a reporter or something because I had a camera. And I've covered a lot of protests in my 32 years of being a journalist. This was the most vile, ugly display that I've ever seen. People literally in your face to the point and they're screaming vile insults at you, and to the point that you can feel the spit in your face. And several times we were prevented. Police just basically said, I'm trying to get pictures. I'm a journalist, right? I'm trying to get in there, see what's going on. I'm watching the arrests go down. And I'm watching people be intimidated as they attempted to enter and leave the rally. And so I wanted to capture it, but there were times when I didn't feel safe. Or my fiance grabs my arm and says, no, we're not going that way. Or a cop tells me you're not going that way. Wow. And it was very, the way Seattle police handled it, I was very impressed, because you had the chants going on from inside, the rally goers shouting, thank you, SPD, over and over again at the top of their lungs. So there were about 600 of them. And then just outside on either side of the perimeter where the protesters were being kept was, F you, SPD, over and over again. And so you've got this sharp contrast where people come down in this issue.
I think that's a great example of, even 5 years later, we're still seeing this divide between the perhaps a lot of residents from Seattle and the Seattle Police Department. And that's something that still seems prominent with this protest here, the rhetoric you're hearing. Now, I'm curious, Carlene, what was the message? What was the rally within the protest with the religious organizations? What were they saying?
Well, a lot of it was just praise and worship, tough music. And of course, it felt like you were at a concert, really. And then there were speakers that would come up and address the crowd. One of them being that pastor, Russ Johnson, from the Pursuit Church. And the loudest applause, and cheers from folks that were attending the rally came when he announced on stage that there had been a post from FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino that in fact they are launching an investigation into the way the city, handled what went down at Cal Anderson Park on Saturday, and kind of looking into the potential treatment of folks and First Amendment rights for faith-based groups. So they were very happy about that. And I heard that they were calling for the resignation of Harrell for his statements as well, correct? Yeah, they were. And we didn't get anything back from, you got sent the same press release that I did on Wednesday morning from Mayor Bruce Harrell's office, basically with a lot of statements from faith-based groups I would call them Seattle-centric, right? Saying that they support the way he's handled it, and they support him, and they support the trans movement. Mm-hmm. the message from these other groups that were there is, okay, that may resonate with some people and people of faith, that doesn't speak for the vast majority of Christians, they contend, even in the greater Seattle area. So that's where the contrast is at this point. And I wish that you could get cooler heads to prevail. I hate to, there's such a, cliche statement, but for folks from either party to sit down and just talk about it reasonably. But I can tell you the folks that were there, at least the activists, those that were bent on, being in your face, if you will, yesterday, those aren't the kind of people that can sit down and have a reasonable conversation about it. I know there are those that support the trans right movement that can sit down and have that conversation. I wish those folks, could rise to the surface right now and be willing, because as this thing keeps going, these escalation of things, it just leads to something even worse.
It becomes more divisive too, where we can't find this common ground, I think is very frustrating, I think, for all parties to see. And we have to say Tuesday's rally led to 8 arrests. It's noteworthy to say there were no injuries, at least reported. But this is a fascinating couple of days. And do you know if there are going to be any more rallies held by these religious organizations, or are we just kind of waiting here to see?
I would venture a guess they've probably already got some plans in the works. I sensed from the momentum of the event on Tuesday that they feel like right now that maybe they've got the energy on their side, especially with the announcement that the FBI is going to look into Seattle, and just the sheer numbers of folks that turned out. So I would be surprised if there isn't something in the next few days announced. Meantime, I had a fascinating conversation in an article that I'll be publishing this week. Talk with a gentleman who is part of a group of Democrats for informed choice on gender issues. And it was fascinating. He's out of Kitsap County. Yeah. And he's like, I'm about as far left politically as they go. He said, I've been a lifelong Democrat. He goes, I feel like my party has completely abandoned me on an issue that is so hugely important for any of us that are parents or have nieces, nephews, whatever in our families. And he said even a polling of his group of Democrats in his community, it was an 80-20 issue. 80% saying we don't want boys in the girls' bathrooms. We don't want boys competing in girls' sports. And we don't think that it's a right thing to do these medical interventions on very young children deciding to make life-altering decisions about their bodies. So that was fascinating. And he said, I feel like I've been pushed away from having a seat at the table with my own party. And he's not going to give up. He's fighting. He's going to stay in it. He was attending the rally as well on Tuesday, but I found that to be fascinating because it's become a partisan issue, Spencer, but as you and I know, it's not really what all the polling suggests. It's not a partisan issue.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm getting here. And that'll be a fascinating story to read once you publish it here, just to hear from Democratic leaders on this. With that opinion, it actually shocks me, but I'm curious to see what comes from that. And Carlene, I want to thank you again for being on the scene. I know it felt unsafe, and I'm glad you were okay, despite all of the vernacular sent your way in your direction. But thank you for covering that.
A thick skin.
There you go. You have to with this profession.
Yeah.
Oh, Carlene, thanks so much for talking about this. And to our listeners and viewers at home, thanks for watching. And we'll keep an eye on this as well. Thanks.